The story, before we start, the story actually starts with a flashback. Keep that in mind as we read the first few paragraphs, okay? Yeah. Well, as the day was pleasant, Madame Valmande drove over to L'Abri to see Désirée and the baby. It made her laugh to think of Désirée with a baby. Why, it seemed but yesterday that Désirée was little more than a baby herself, when Monsieur, in riding through the gateway of Valmande, had found her lying asleep in the shadow of the big stone pillar. The little one awoke in his arms and began to cry for Dad. That was as much as she could do or say. Some people thought she might have strayed there of her own accord, for she was of the toddling age. The prevailing belief was that she had been purposely left by a party of Texans whose canvas-covered wagon late in the day had crossed the ferry that Cotton Mace kept just below the plantation. In time, Madame Valmande abandoned every speculation but the one that Désirée had been sent to her by a beneficent providence to be the child of her affection, seeing that she was without child of the flesh. For the girl grew to be beautiful and gentle, affectionate and sincere, the idol of Valmande. With that being said, what does this flashback tell us about Désirée? Go ahead and write this in your book. What does this flashback tell us about it? I know we've just been given a little bit, just a hint so far, but what does this flashback, right at the beginning of the story, tell us about Désirée? What do you think? What did you discuss?
She was bad.
Start with this group right here, then we'll go this group.
So because Désirée was left off on the side, usually what people assume is that they end up becoming bad, ill-tempered, stuff like that. Well, she kind of beat the odds and ended up as nice and caring. And it's partially due to her being with such a kind and caring person on Monday.
Okay. So you've seen the Jungle Book, right? Mowgli?
Mm-hmm.
You know that Jungle Book's coming out. It's a good one, isn't it?
That looks like scary. The new one looks like a
The
little
new one looks
terrifying.
really weird, yeah. Not gonna lie.
Are real talking snakes.
Like, real
The one in the cartoon's hilarious. It has that lisp and everything.
But there's a talking snake in Harry Potter.
God, that's scary too.
Let's go to this group over here.
You had said that it seemed that Madame Valmande was unable to have her own child.
Mm-hmm.
So she felt really blessed to have her, so she treated her well and didn't think that she was like I can't think of a word. Yeah, Vernon.
Like her own child, right? Takes her in, and it even says that she was the idol of Valmande. So she thinks very highly of this young girl who's not her flesh and blood. She takes her in like her own daughter. Very good. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else before we move on? Yes, sir.
She wasn't abandoned like right after birth
Okay.
because she was of toddling age, which is like 2 or 3.
She said that.
Yeah, and obviously she knew her father.
And Chopin goes over the possibility that she could have gone there on her own accord, right? So that is a possibility, and I think that's a good piece of the text to look at. Very good. Also, something we know, or something we should know about this flashback is we know nothing about her parents. We know nothing, at least, anyways. We know nothing about her parents, know nothing about her family. Perhaps that's something we should keep in mind as we go forward. So let's keep going. It was no wonder when she stood one day against the stone pillar in whose shadow she had lain asleep 18 years before, that Armand Aubigny, riding by and seeing her there, had fallen in love with her. That was the way all the Aubignys fell in love, as if struck by a pistol shot. Sound familiar? The wonder was that he had not loved her before, for he had known her since his father brought him home from Paris, the boy of 8, after his mother died there. The passion that woke in him that day, when he saw her at the gate, swept along like an avalanche, or like a prairie fire, or like anything that drives headlong over all obstacles. Take about a minute to answer, what do you know about Armand Aubigny? Okay, Lizzie has volunteered first, and then she'll be ready to share. Lizzie, what's your group say?
I said that he fell in love with her, but he's also known her for a very long time, so he has a connection with her.
Has a connection with her. Childhood friends, grew up, now all of a sudden, ooh la la. What else? This group right here, what'd you guys say?
He said he has a strong passion for the girl.
Strong passion, yeah. Anything else?
I said that he seems to be very headstrong and he's the type of person to do whatever he wants to get.
Okay, goes after it. Very good. What else? Let's go to this group.
That he like wished that he had noticed her in like a romantical way beforehand, because he thinks that he would have loved her like for a long time.
Your life story now. Yes, very good. Thank you for sharing. Let's go to this group.
You also find out that his mother died whenever he was really young.
That was a very sad thing he said, but a unicorn was telling me this, and so I'm sorry. Yes, his mother died in Paris, right? And so they returned home. Jules, did I see your hand?
No, you did not.
Oh, okay. You have anything else? Okay. Was she throwing something? I really don't know. What is it? Awesome. All right. Let's continue where we left off, shall we? Monsieur Valmande grew practical and wanted things well considered. That is, the girl's obscure origin. Armand looked into her eyes and did not care. He was reminded that she was nameless. What did it matter about a name when he could give her one of the oldest and proudest in Louisiana? He ordered the corbeille from Paris. What is a corbeille? Anybody know?
I don't know.
What? Anybody know?
For you.
It is a gift basket given by a groom to a bride. So all of a sudden, we've started with a little baby, Désirée. We've flashed forward all the way 18 years. She's grown up. Okay? And then she all of a sudden falls in love. Chopin doesn't go into any detail. And then all of a sudden, they're already thinking marriage. Chopin's moving quickly, isn't she? And contained himself with what patience he could until it arrived. Then they were married.
Wow.
Things are happening quickly, aren't they? All right, I'll ask you guys this. Would you marry someone but you had no idea about their family? You didn't know anything about their parents, their biological parents, didn't know anything about their grandparents. Would you marry someone who you didn't know?
If it was true love.
If it was true love? If you left?
Maybe, you don't really know about my family.
Well, it depends if they're still
Say it again, Jake.
It depends if they're still in their life or not. Like if they're just like living by themselves and like don't have a connection to them, then it wouldn't really matter.
Let's compare it to this situation. They've known each other since 8. He knows Madame Valmonde, who's raised her. Would it matter that you don't know their parents or their grandparents?
Well, you don't
People don't know
parents.
my family, so I mean.
So Lizzie, you say you don't care? You don't
Well, I
know their
mean, I would
parents?
like to know, but I mean, for in this story, I mean.
Julie made a
Yeah,
good
because
point.
Desiree doesn't know, right?
Julie made a good point.
Julie, what'd you say?
So no one knows my family.
What do you mean?
I'm just like Desiree. Who found me? Desiree.
She was adopted.
She's adopted.
Who found me?
I'm married to Julie, so I guess.
left on a street corner.
Have you ever met your parents? Your biological parents?
They don't,
Yeah,
they
she-
live in China.
Well, you might.
No way. I couldn't tell.
They live in San
Really? I would have said Louisiana. They must have just dropped you off the ground.
Hey, at least your parents are not unicorns, you know what I'm saying? All right.
You mean nothing this morning?
It did the trick. Tracy's left. Okay.
You have to say nothing.
He would marry me.
Right?
Say it to my face, says Eeyore to
Did I say that
the
very loudly? I thought I was talking quietly.
Madame Valmonde had not seen Desiree and the baby for 4 weeks. All right, Chopin, slow me down just a little. We're going 4 weeks. When she reached L'Abri, she shuddered at the first sight of it, as she always did. It was a sad-looking place, which for many years had not known the gentle presence of a mistress. Old Monsieur Aubigny, having married and buried his wife in France, and she having loved her own land too well ever to leave it. The roof came down, steep and black like a cow, reaching out beyond the wide galleries that encircled the yellow stuccoed house. Big solemn oaks grew close to it, and their thick-leaved, far-reaching branches shadowed it like a pall. Young Aubigny's rule was a strict one, too, and under it his Negroes had forgotten how to be gay as they had been during the old master's easy-going and indulgent lifetime. What did Aubigny own?
Aubrey.
Say it again, Chancellor?
Slave house.
Yes, he owned slaves, right? The Negroes that he was referring to were slaves. If you paid attention during the historical context and a little bit about Kate Chopin, she wrote a lot of things in the late 1800s, early 1900s. That's American realism. That's when it takes place, okay? So yeah, slaves. And in her life in St. Louis, she was probably accustomed to slaves in her own life. With that being said, what is the reasoning? What is the reasoning? Why had the slaves, had the Negroes, forgotten to be happy?
Because the guys were strict.
Yeah, what about him?
Too bad.
More specifically? In what way? What makes him? What makes him that? He's strict. He had a very strict authority, and as a result, they weren't very happy. They weren't very vain. The young mother was recovering slowly and lay full length in her soft white muslins and laces upon a couch. The baby was beside her upon her arm, where he had fallen asleep at her breast. The yellow nurse woman sat beside a window, fanning herself. When it says the yellow nurse, that's in reference to probably a light-skinned person of African American. Madame Valmonde bent her portly figure over Désirée and kissed her, holding her an instant tenderly in her arms. Then she turned to the child. "This is not the baby," she exclaimed in startled tones. French was the language spoken at Valmonde in those days. I knew you would be astonished, laughed Désirée, at the way he has grown. The little conchon de lait. Look at his legs, Mama, and his hands and fingernails. Real fingernails. Zandrine had to cut them this morning. Isn't it true, Zandrine? The woman bowed her turbaned head majestically. Mais, si, madame. And the way he cries, went on Désirée, is deafening. Armand heard him the other day as far away as Leblanche's cabin. Madame Valmande had never removed her eyes from the child. She lifted it and walked with it over to the window that was lightest. She scanned the baby narrowly, then looked as searchingly at Zandrine, whose face was turned to gaze across the fields. Yes, the child has grown, has changed, said Madame Valmande, slowly as she replaced it beside its mother. What does Armand say? Désirée's face became suffused with a glow that was happiness itself. Oh, Armand is the proudest father in the parish. I believe chiefly because it is a boy, to bear his name, though he says not that he would have loved a girl as well. But I know it isn't true. I know he says that to please me. And Mama, she added, drawing Madame Valmonde's head down to her and speaking in a whisper, he hasn't punished one of them. Not one of them since baby is born. Even Negrillon, who pretended to have burnt his leg that he might rest from work. He only laughed and said Negrillon was a great scam. Oh, Mama, I'm so happy. It frightens me. Fellas, I'll ask you now. Would you relate to the happiness Armand feels at having a boy as opposed?
Yes.
Oh,
Haddock says yes.
Yes.
Reno says yes.
true.
Anybody else? You say yeah?
Yes, that's true.
What Désirée said was true. Marriage and later the birth of his son had softened Armand Aubigny's imperious and exacting nature greatly. This was what made the gentle Désirée so happy, for she loved him desperately. When he frowned, she trembled, but loved him. When he smiled, she asked no greater blessing of God. But Armand's dark, handsome face had not often been disfigured by frowns since the day he fell in love with her. Look at that line, right, the second to last sentence. It says, when he frowned, she wept. What might that indicate? Perhaps abuse, perhaps that he's intimidating, he's scary. We've already been given in the text that he's been really harsh, or not harsh, but really strict with the Negroes to such an extent that they aren't happy, right? They're displeased, they're unhappy people because of his strict authority, the way he runs things around the plantation. Okay? And so his own wife, not a slave, his own wife, who he claims to love, says when he frowns, when he shows displeasure, when he's unhappy, she trembles, she's petrified, she's terrified at this man. When the baby was about 3 months old, Désirée awoke one day to the conviction that there was something in the air menacing her peace. You ever wake up in the morning and it's like you have that empty feeling in your stomach, that sick feeling in your stomach? Something's wrong. It's Monday, right? Every Monday. You ever had that feeling that something is just wrong here? It was at first too subtle to grasp. It had only been a disquieting suggestion. An air of mystery among the blacks, unexpected visits from far-off neighbors who could hardly account for their coming. Then a strange and awful change in her husband's manner, which she dared not ask him to explain. When he spoke to her, it was with averted eyes, from which the old love light seemed to have gone out. He absented himself from home, and when there, avoided her presence in that of her child without excuse. And the very spirit of Satan seemed suddenly to take hold of him. In his dealings with the slaves, Désirée was miserable enough to die. So at first, 4 weeks later after the baby's born, we see that Madame Valmande visits, and Désirée is just ecstatic. Oh my gosh, my husband is so happy. It's a boy, and everything's so great. He's nice to the slaves. He's nice to me. He's smiling. He's happy. Life is great. And now all of a sudden, she's got an awful feeling in her stomach, a conviction that she can't really explain. It's hard for her to grasp. And then all of a sudden, her husband is kind of distant. And then when he's there, he doesn't even talk to her. He ignores her, and he doesn't even give an excuse for why he's distancing himself. He doesn't even give an excuse as to why he's kind of ignoring the woman he claims to love. The woman that he fell in love so quick, like a pistol, the text says. Now all of a sudden, he's not even talking to her. He's not even paying attention. She sat in her room one hot afternoon in her peignoir, which is a gown, listlessly drawing through her fingers the strands of her long, silky brown hair that hung about her shoulders. The baby, half naked, lay asleep upon her own great mahogany bed that was like a sumptuous throne with its satin-lined half canopy. One of Leblanche's little quadroon boys, half naked too, stood fanning the child slowly with a fan of peacock feathers. What is quadroon? Do you know?
A small room.
As Logan kind of alluded to in his prediction, it's someone with mixed race. That is mixed race. So Leblanche is who?
The
Slave. Yeah, the slave. Very good. So the slave has a child of mixed race. Okay? So you got Désirée's baby, who's laying there half naked, and then you got this, the slave's baby, the quadroon, who's laying there naked, asleep as well. They're laying beside each other. Désirée's eyes had been fixed absently and sadly upon the baby, while she was striving to penetrate the threatening mist that she felt closing about her. She looked from her child to the boy who stood beside her, and back again, over and over. Ah! It was a cry that she could not help, which she was not conscious of having uttered. The blood turned like ice in her veins, and a clammy moisture gathered upon her face. So the two babies are side by side, and she's looking at one, and she's looking at the other. She's looking at one, and she's looking at the other. Why would she do that?
Because they look alike.
They look alike. She has a quadroon. She tried to speak to the little quadroon boy, but no sound would come at first. When he heard his name uttered, he looked up, and his mistress was pointing to the door. He laid aside the great soft fan and obediently stole away over the polished floor on his bare tiptoes. She stayed motionless, with gaze riveted upon her child, and her face the picture of fright. Presently her husband entered the room, and without noticing her, went to a table and began to search among some papers which covered it. "Armand," she called to him in a voice which must have stabbed him, if he was human. But he did not notice. "Armand," she said again, and she rose and tottered towards him. "Armand," she panted once more, clutching his arm. "Look at her child. What does it mean? Tell me." He coldly but gently loosened her fingers from about his arm and thrust the hand away from him. "Tell me what it means," she cried despairingly. "It means," he answered lightly, "that the child is not white. It means that you are not white."
Yes.
Wait a second. What race is Désirée's parents?
We don't know.
We don't know.
Perhaps for the first time. We know. A quick conception of all that this accusation meant for her nerved her with unwanted courage to deny it. It's a lie. It's not true. I am white. Look at my hair. It is brown. And my eyes are gray. Armand, you know that they are gray. But my skin is fair. Seizing his wrist. Look at my hand, whiter than yours, Armand. She laughed hysterically. As white as the blanches, he would turn cruelly and went away, leaving her alone with her child. Does he do well to be angry? Does he have a right to be angry here?
No.
Yeah.
Why
He
do you say
married
no?
her. He married her.
He married her.
He cannot get her pregnant and then be upset that she's black because he married her.
Yeah, okay, but does it even matter that she is black?
No, because
It's only the social norms. Like in today's world, you would have been totally chill.
fiction.
No, it's just.
Whether it's today or whether it's 1892, should it matter?
No, it shouldn't.
Should be that.
But back then,
Keyword, right?
But it did.
It was.
And that was the problem.
Well, and not to everybody, but particularly Armand here, right? In this fictional story.
If the baby grows up to like wear hoods all the time and be a thug.
Dang, Joe.
Joe.
Awful.
That was so weird.
Just go over
That's okay. All right.
That's what I can't reach. How do you feel about that?
When she could hold a pen in her hand, she sent a despairing letter to Madame Valmande. Don't you like how Chopin writes that? When she could hold a pen. She was probably trembling, she was shaking, such a traumatic event. My mother, they tell me I'm not white. Armand has told me I am not white. For goodness sake, tell them it is not true. You must know it is not true. I shall die. I must die. I cannot be so unhappy and live. It goes from a happy marriage to a death wish. Yeah. The answer that came was as brief. My own Désirée, come home to Valmande. Back to your mother who loves you. Come with your child. When the letter reached Désirée, she went with it to her husband's study and laid it open upon the desk before which he sat. She was like a stone image, silent, white, motionless, after she placed it there.
Apparently not white enough for her husband.
Oh,
Perhaps she was hoping, praying that he would beg her to stay and not go home to her mother, who says, I love you, come home to me, which is in complete contrast to that of her husband. In silence, he ran his cold eyes over the written words. He said nothing. Shall I go, Armand? She asked in tones sharp with agonized suspense. Yes, go. Do you want me to go? Yes, I want you to go. He thought Almighty God had dealt cruelly and unjustly with him and felt somehow that he was paying him back in kind when he stabbed thus into his wife's soul. Moreover, he no longer loved her because of the unconscious injury she had brought upon his home and his name. Racist? Yeah.
There.
Self-centered?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. She turned away. She turned away like one stunned by a blow and walked slowly towards the door, hoping he would call her back. A blow more stunning than Holly Holm could even provide. Goodbye, Armand, she moaned. He did not answer her. Holly Holm is the one who knocked out 1892, 2006. Times have changed, I'm sorry. He did not answer her. That was his last blow at fate. Didn't even say goodbye to his wife. Désirée went in search of her child. Zandrine was pacing the somber gallery with it. She took the little one from the nurse's arms with no word of explanation, and descending the steps, walked away under the light oak branches. It was an October afternoon. The sun was just sinking. Out in the still fields, the Negroes were picking cotton. Désirée had not changed the thin white garment nor the slippers which she wore. Her hair was uncovered, and the sun's rays brought a golden gleam from its brown meshes. She did not take the broad, beaten road which led to the far-off plantation of Almonte. She didn't go home. She didn't follow that yellow brick road, did she?
Dang it, Dorothy.
She walked across a deserted field where the stubble bruised her tender feet so delicately shod and tore her thin gown to shreds. She disappeared among the reeds and willows that grew thick along the banks of the deep, sluggish bayou, and she did not come back again. What did she just do? Ran away. Most commentators most commentators would agree that at this point, Désirée went away and committed suicide. She had a death wish. She said, I'm so unhappy that I cannot live. I cannot bear to live any longer. She goes off here. The text indicates more than likely it was
And she
suicide.
took the baby off so that the baby wouldn't have to deal with the prejudice.
And the baby would have grown up without a mother, and a father who didn't love him.
Yeah.
So,
Some weeks later, there was a curious scene enacted at Lawbreak. In the center of the smoothly swept backyard was a great bonfire. Armand Aubigny sat in the wide hallway that commanded a view of the spectacle, and it was he who dealt out to a half-dozen Negroes the material which kept this fire ablaze. A graceful cradle of willow, with all its dainty furbishings, was laid upon the pyre, which had already been fed with the richness of a priceless laden baby clothes. Then there were silk gowns and velvet and satin ones added to these, laces too and embroideries, bonnets and gloves. The corbel had been of rare quality. So the gift basket that he had provided for his wife was now being thrown into the fire, along with the baby's cradle. Didn't want to remember them anymore, did he?
or he felt that this was his last thing that he was required to do out of obligation.
The last thing to go was a tiny bundle of letters, innocent little scribblings that Désirée had sent to him during the days of their espousal. There was the remnant of one back in the drawer from which he took them, but it was not Désirée's. It was part of an old letter from his mother to his father. Remember his mother, what happened to his mother?
She died in France.
She passed away. He read it. She was thanking God for the blessing of her husband's love. This is her letter. It's what her letter says. But above all, she wrote, night and day, I thank the good God for having to arrange our lives, that our dear Armand will never know that his mother, who adores him, belongs to the race that is cursed with the brand.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
So who is the one with the
It was all
African
him.
accent?
It was him.
Oh my
What?
God.
Oh,
It was him all along. It was him all
Do
along.
you feel horrible now?
So Kate Chopin, listen to me. Listen to me. Kate Chopin, in dramatic fashion, in the American realist way that she only knows how to, rebukes and makes fun of racism, someone who is sexist, someone who is male chauvinistic, such as Armand. She's calling out a character, someone with a character, such as Armand, and she does it in a brilliant